When I showed a scene from Digimon Frontier to a friend who has only seen the original adventure and knows nothing about Digimon lore, he was really impressed. He said that the story depicted in that scene was really complex and reminded him of an epic fantasy novel, like the prologue from The Lord of the Rings. The scene I showed him was the battle between the great Digimon angels. His comment made me think about how much Frontier contributed to developing and expanding Digimon lore and what else did it bring to the table, or didn't. I always think of Digimon Frontier as somewhat of a turning point for the Digimon franchise. This year marks 20 years since its release. To this day, I still read a lot of comments from people who either watched Digimon until Frontier or stopped watching after. Some say it was a good season, some say it was bad, while others say it was kinda both. A good season executed poorly. While it did have a few issues, I remember liking this season the first time I watched it. With the combination of an interesting story, good animation and great artwork, this season delivered in many aspects where others failed. I still think its highs were very high, but what about its lows? What made this season so controversial in the Digimon fandom? It seems like lately we can't escape a baddish written story in all genres. It doesn't mean the entertainment is bad though. For example, this year I got to see another sequel of my favorite movie. While I thought the story was disappointing, the movie still succeeded in entertaining me. But after it ended, I left the theater wondering how much time do the writers spend nowadays writing scripts? How come there are so many plot holes or plot lines devoid of logic? It seems like in this day and age, when everything is instant and made with an expiration date, no one even tries to produce something evergreen. Why would they put the effort when it might fail and they move on to the next project? Digimon Frontier, however, definitely delivered in its original story and lore. When you think of Digimon groups, you think of the three great angels, the Olympus 12, Demon Lords, Royal Knights, Legendary Spirits. Now imagine if two of those groups were part of the same story. There was a battle between beast and human Digimon, which was eventually stopped by Lucemon, who got corrupted due to the enormous power and turned evil. He was stopped by the Legendary Spirits, only to later turn the great angels against each other. It really was just as good as it sounds. But that's not where the story begins. That was just the seed of the story. The anime began with the aftermath and saving the digital world to make it peaceful again. While every season of Digimon brought us entertaining storylines, Digimon Frontier might have had one of the most complex and serious plots. However, there was a small issue with this season that made it stand out from the rest. There was no partnerships, only humans turning into Digimon. From episode 1 of any Digimon anime, we are used to see the kids meet Digimon, get to know them and form a strong bond. One could say that this is what the Digimon franchise represents at its core, but this season tried to play with the concept. While the main characters in Frontier did meet various Digimon, also saving some from bad guys along their journey, this season decided to go another route and ditch the partnership between Chosen Kids and Digimon. While I applaud them for always reinventing themselves, this season failed on the emotional part, where other seasons shined. The Chosen Kids did have two Digimon accompanying them on their journey, later joined by a Patamon, who was one of the three Archangels before the de-evolving. While the idea of humans turning into Digimon was introduced in the previous third season, it was only achieved by humans fusing with their Digimon partners and only at their ultimate level. While this season didn't give us a strong bond between the protagonists, it definitely didn't fail in delivering great villains. In addition to the many episodic villains, there were two bosses who became fan favorites because of this season. These were not ordinary copy-paste villains with just an evil plan. They were written to have emotions, and each followed a purpose they believed in. Feelings of being misunderstood, using other powerful Digimon as puppets for their goal, or having unlimited power. These were just a few of the motives the villains in Frontier had. Even antagonists like Dynasmon and Lord Nightmon, who in this universe were actually the two belonging to the Royal Knights, had a motive to go to the human world and rule it. The main characters of the Digimon Frontier did not just face their enemies in battle, because once the battle finished, they used their resources to purify their evil opponents, meaning they could be reborn with a good heart and basically start anew. All that was fun and games, but there was a slight problem with suddenly cutting all character development. And it's not like we started off in a bad way. The season had decent character development in the beginning, but suddenly you could say we were forced to watch Kaiser Greymon and Magna Garurumon do most, if not all of the fighting. It kinda felt like in the adventure, where only Agumon and Gabumon got their ultimate forms, but unlike Frontier, in the adventure, the other kids were useful in later episodes. A lot of fans to this day say that Tamers was the darkest season, but I think every Digimon season was dark when it needed to be. Just because some seasons were painted with butterflies and rainbows, and I'm not talking about Frontier specifically now, it doesn't mean those seasons were less dark altogether. Frontier did have some pretty dark themes. They did a great job in shaping a good story. The main characters traveled to the digital world to do a good thing and save it from darkness. As we got to know them, we found out much more about them, including some baggage they carried from the real world. Insecurity when you are in a new place unfamiliar to you, being bullied because you have a kind personality, struggling with being separated from your family, being surrounded by crowds but feeling alone. Those are just some of the topics Digimon Frontier touched upon. When you mix that up with two villains who have problems of their own, the story suddenly gets more layers. While things seemed okay in the beginning with the dark themes and some character development, the second half of the season became a bit weird. This comes hand in hand with what I said earlier about the demise of character development. I wouldn't call the idea that the anime had necessarily bad, but the second half of the season left us with a bitter taste. It felt a bit stretched, considering we were left with 2 out of 6 characters to do the fighting. While all 6 chosen kids had a human and beast spirit to evolve into, the main 2 had an evolution where they fused, plus that Digimon evolved into another form. Once the final battle was coming closer, they made the other 4 share their spirits with the main 2 so they could evolve into the strongest Digimon in the season. For the last battle, they fixed this by making them all be a part of the final evolution. But the thing is, we couldn't just forget everything that happened before. Was it endurable? Yes. Could it have been done differently? Yes. It's not exactly rare for a Digimon anime to push 1 or 2 main characters more than the rest, but even though every group has a leader, fans would prefer the entire cast getting a spotlight, because not everyone relates to the main character. We all have a different favorite, and Digimon has done a great job in the past at writing interesting characters, whether it was Digimon or humans. What do you think about Digimon Frontier? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Stay tuned for more Digimon videos. PS, make sure to follow my community page on YouTube, as I also post updates about upcoming videos there.